About lessons, okay? This is a little mini series of interviews that we're doing across the reservation for SWO tribal members. We do parents and kids and individuals with their accolades. I meant elders. Like, we want to bring people in to talk about life. We want to bring them in to celebrate the small wins we have, to give each other props, to tell us stories that we don't want to get lost in time. So lessons is here, and every single interview is going to be a lesson for us, and we hope you tune in.
I want to go back to your text that you had shared. You said, well, what are we going to visit about? And you said life. And you know that life is a four-letter word, and it's very small. It's just a four-letter word, right? But when you think about what that impact of that life is, it could be humongous. It's almost like it's how do we deal with that, right?
Yes.
It's just so huge. And so growing up here at Sistine Lofton area, going to church just a half a mile over here at the Tawachiwa State Presbyterian Church, Goodwill Church. It was the old place, or it was the church. That's about the only two places you would find us, or you would find us up in Crawford's Coulee.
So did they have any businesses back in the day?
We had some small business and trade. There weren't so much tribally owned. Lloyd's stations up north, west of Crawford Hill, Peaver Hill.
Oh.
About 2 miles up the road. I think now it's Laurie's Road that goes up
yep.
and across up there. You come. There was a little old community gas station, had a little store kind of concept. Fix your tires, fix your brakes, whatever oil change and things you needed. That was one of the only public business other than Sisseton itself. But growing up with those things, here in the community, first thing we've really known was fellowship. We fellowshipped and had times, as you're saying, as you started out the interview, that we wanted to share our stories and our things that are happening, our life's things that happen, wins and losses. Well, them days it was natural to go. We would go to up to Leo Great Clubs up there by Sheechy Hollow. Once a month we'd make it up there, and we sit down that evening, have coffee, have a little snack, and visit just about life, just visit, then find our way home. But we would go different places as we want, all the communities. And our family grew up in the church, so we had spirituality was real strong. I never grew up in what Dakota way of spirituality. It was the Christian way. But when it came to that strength of that spiritual strength, it was always a cornerstone, and it wasn't just our family. It was across the board. There's 6 tribal Presbyterian churches here on the reservation, and I think there's 6 Episcopal dioceses on the reservation. So Christianity was strong, is strong, and so that's how we grew up. But we all grew up sharing. When someone was in need, even though we maybe had difficult or words or something, or whatever, but when somebody was hurt or somebody was hurting, that didn't. All those things went aside. They immediately came to the system to help and make sure that, because life was more important than some argument.
Right.
And so that, and we were taught by our grandparents and my uncles and aunts were very strong that we don't leave our to-dos unsaid. Let's finish them. So tomorrow will be that new day. I'll be the first to say I haven't held that very well, because I carry grudges yet today. But we're human, right?
Yes, we are.
And that humanness of those things are really what we find within life too. But once we come over those challenges, we forgive and we move on. That is true life, because I think that's what the Creator has asked us to do, to be good relative, to be a good neighbor to each other. And by doing this, I think in a small way, Derek, that you were starting that. We're opening that. We're cracking that egg, or we're cracking that barrier down. We can see a lot of barriers in life. We challenge, not only, from a community, but individually. I've overcome, I think I could say pretty strongly, I've overcame alcoholism for the first time in my life. I couldn't have said that 10, 20 years ago. It was something that had control of me. But with God's will and how we believe, something changes in our life. And I think that today, our younger people, our children, and I have three children, 2 daughters and 1 son. I have 7 grandchildren, 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson, and I have 3 great grandsons. So if we're leaving a legacy, we leave a legacy not only because of life of who I am, but how far that stretches back. Yeah. In our Dakota way, I'll be first to state, I don't know much about it, but what I do know about it, or I heard, we talk about the 7th generation, and that 7th generation is, to me, sometimes it's unspoken generation.
Yeah.
I can go back. I didn't know my great great grandfather Akipa. I didn't know of my great grandfather Charles. Charles was one of the first native pastors in the Dakota Territory. My grandpa Ed, who raised me, helped me understand the faith. My father, he was the oldest of 15 children, yeah. Siblings. Myself, my son, I have a grandson, and now I can say from my great grandsons. So there's a stretch here, yeah. And I wanted, I'm lonely in a way. When you ask me these questions, I get kind of lonely because I can't go talk to nobody anymore. Yeah. I mean, I just lost our relative, and we used to talk about the old place. We used to talk about the house on the hill. We talk about those hunting trips, or we talk about our uncles. But now I go talk, and who I grew up with, they're all gone. It's I look around, and just my sister is the only one I can see that we lived in the same houses for all our number of years. Do you think
as you get older, that's kind of the most rewarding part about it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
As you age, it's like you want to have those conversations with your children, or you want to have those, because sometimes I learn by watching, I've been, and this is one of those things to where it's just like, whether it be in movies or real life and stuff, and it's just like, all right, that's going to happen if I do that kind of stuff, but I've noticed even in my family is, my uncles and my older male figures, it was really hard for them to talk. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was really hard for them to pass that information down, because I don't know if they were taught that, and I know my grandpa, when I said the same thing, when I asked my grandpa questions, he was always hesitant to talk to me. Yeah. But he did, and it's just like I said, that arrogance part that was when I was younger, yeah. It was I don't know if he took that as, I might be wasting my time doing this, or maybe I need to do this because sooner or later you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, it is, and that's something that, for me, it's the same way. I always said I had 11 dads. My grandpa, my real dad, and my 9 uncles, right down the line. Well, if you didn't listen, one of them was going to come and tell you what's wrong. But they did it in a way that I think that missing out today is that we need to. Our strength is not in different forms. Strength is. Oh. It comes in physical strength. It comes in tangible strength, and it comes into what we need mostly today, I think, is an internal strength of ourselves.
It's kind of like getting over a taboo topic of having to be a man, kind of toughness,
Yeah.
Doesn't always go that way, though.
It doesn't go, because no matter how strong you are, or the stronger you believe that you are, it tends to be the weakest you are. Yeah. And when you come to know that there's another defined thing in our life, and I'm going to say spiritual life within our core. When we become balanced, that's the real strength. It's real strength between physicalness, spiritual, and to say no. It's okay to say, no, I'm not gonna go to do that stupid thing that's gonna lead me to maybe possible issues. Or to stay strong and say, I'm gonna stay focused on what my plan is. Both of those, when you become balanced, that's, to me, is true strength. And I wanted to, if anything, I would share that. But we have to have the courage to go beyond what the outcome might be.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have the faith to challenge it. I mean, when I took the first time I went on, when we played in the ISC, the International Softball Congress Softball Congress, it's the international softball of men's fast pitch. So yeah, I got on the team. I made the team. I wanted to try out down in Lincoln, Nebraska. I wanted to try out and got on the team. First time we went down and played, you know, in Kansas, and we played there for the first time. You see these players that were Major League baseball players, and these guys that they're from Japan, they were from China, these guys are from Cuba, and they were from Mexico. You could just see talent.
Yeah, feel it.
And I was like, what am I doing here? You know, I'm just from old agency, you know. But then I remembered what someone had told me one time. But the problem is, JC, they all got to put on those shoes just like you. And every one of us got to put a glove on. And every one of us got to see that ball come out of that guy's hand to know that if I should swing or not to swing. Only one that can tell you that is that inner self. There's something inside us. But we have to give that the chance to give. Not to say be pressured by, don't want to be disrespectful, but be peer pressured by, no, you shouldn't do that. You know, we don't need that. You need to know what our strengths inside us. Let that come out. And let that tell its story. And I don't know, I mean, I don't want to be too sentimental, but on the other side, that's what really balanced me. And I wanted to play ball. I was I'll be the first one to say that I was the most selfish individual that there is.
So when did that start? So let's go back to when you were younger. So
Mhm.
let's go back to when, like, was that one of the biggest hobbies? Who did you watch growing up? Like, who was the ones? Because they said back in the day, they used to have like 7 softball fields. All
Yes.
the districts used to have them. Everybody used to play. Like, there used to be our superstars. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yep.
people that, you know, they got stories of, and it's like, wow, that guy's fast pitch come out,
Yeah.
just dance for you, they say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they threw it hurt, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And it's just like, you think about it now, and it's just like, just to watch that, being a kid, watching that, and you look back at your memories, and it's like, you know, those ones were the idols we had. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Those
mean,
were the ones.
You know, obviously, growing up with we had our own family team. You know, my dad was a heck of a pitcher. Herb was a good pitcher. Sam was a good pitcher. Lyman was a good pitcher. Terry was a good pitcher. They all had their skills, and I watched them. But the one I really probably admired the most was my aunt, Abby.
Oh, really?
She was a ball player.
She looked like Dottie Henson.
Yeah.
Early, huh?
She can throw that ball, and she can hit a ball just as hard as any man could hit a ball. But she learned that from her brothers. She grew up in that pasture that we lived in. But I remember watching ball players that came to when you say that we had a league, we had 12 teams here, men's fast pitch league at one time. And we would play 2 nights out of the week, and we would play in each district. We would play here at Old Agency and the old orphanage and down behind St. Peter's. We had a couple of non-native teams in there, and we had mostly we were tribal people though. But we were playing together to watch them play. And one of the most talented pitcher, there was a lot of them, but I would have to say one of the ones I admired the most, and I had to really concentrate when I got to bat against them. And this is when I was 14 or 15 years old. Was Ed Williams. Ed Williams came back from the military after years of service in the military, and he was one of the premier fast pitch native pitchers in our state, the region of North Dakota, South Dakota. And then there was Les Barr Sr., and there was Raymond Shepard from Enemy Swim, there was Irvin Cook, and I mean there was just a ton of them that came, and everyone.
It just was a competitive battle.
It was just it just everybody brought their game, you know, and everybody learned, and we got to see some of these ball players come, and pitchers that just was amazing that this talent had. I'll lead into something, as being inducted as yourself, into the Hall of Fame, into the yours basketball, mine softball this past year. I started my speech by saying that this was beyond behalf of my Crawford family, Kioshwe, and the community of Old Agency. Because if it wasn't for my family to guide me, to give me those early head starts, to be around that game, or the community members to allow me to come and participate when I was just a young kid to play, they're the ones that mold me. They're the ones that made me who I am today when it comes to the athletic part. There is some challenge though, that you can have all the best coaches and all the best teachers in the world, but there still comes back to the imbalance. You have to want to do it in here.
Yeah.
It has to come from inside. If you want to do that, I ran the hills to go check on certain plum trees, bushes, plum trees, back in the day, with the yellow plums and what, we would check on them so that grandma could can them, for jelly and whatnot. So I would run these hills, not even thinking about it, but it was great for me for cross country.
Right.
That was my first, my first love of sports was cross country when I went to high school. And basketball was one, of course, like everybody else. And it was football, and we just did those things like everybody. And then it wasn't nothing disrespectful to today. You're one athlete sport. Back then, you were a multiple sport athlete. You played them. You did everything from baseball to. Old Tubby Gunderson, he was one of the, if you remember him down in Sisseton, taught baseball. He was he had a heart of gold for helping kids to play baseball. And 10 years older than me and 10 years younger than me all remember Tubby Gunderson. But he believed in you. He trusted you. He knew. He didn't say, "Oh, you're from the west side of Sisseton," or "No, you're from Old Ages." You were a ball player.
You could play, huh?
Yep, you were a player.
Kind of how it goes. So that goes into my question about the Hall of Fame. Congratulations, by the way. Long overdue, probably. She's probably got in there like 30 years ago in my book. But so you started playing fast pitch first. So fast pitch was first in the middle 70s or late middle 70s, late 70s?
Yeah, we started in 74. It was probably my first POWA tournament. 4th of July tournament that I remember actually playing with them in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was probably right 74, 73. Mark Thompson, Gabe Tempesca, Charlie Goody, and all the other ones that were kind of my age. Alan LaBelle, Felix Johnson. That was our kind of crew at the time.
You ever see him and be like, let's run it back one time, or everybody just be pulling hamstrings and stuff nowadays, huh?
Yeah. But it was fast pitch, and then for some reason slow pitch came out of the cities, the Minnesota area, and the first slow pitch tournament we went to was in Wheaton, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to Wheaton, Minnesota, and the guys were saying, well, first it was a challenge from guys from Browns Valley. You guys are good, but you guys ain't that good up there in Old Agency. Oh, okay. Well, come to Wheaton. Well, okay, we'll show up. So we go to Wheaton, but they didn't tell us it was slow pitch.
Oh.
So we get there with 9 players with the cleats on and everything, helmets and but no, this is slow pitch. You can't wear cleats, and you got to have 10 players. Yeah. So then you got to forfeit. And because we thought softball was 9 players. We didn't even know it was 10 players. But an older gentleman, I remember, jumped out of the crowd. He come over. You guys need a 10 player. I'll stand in right field for you guys. So we wouldn't forfeit. And Harry ended up winning the tournament. But those are the things challenges that we had. But that was our first introduction to slow pitch. And it was probably the hardest ball to hit.
It is. I'm not gonna lie. It sucks.
We joke about it's coming 2 miles an hour, but and when we went to Perth, Canada, right the weekend before the Goodwill games in Atlanta, Georgia, and it might have been 90, 98, 97. Someone was in one of the Goodwill games we were having at Cobb County in Atlanta, Georgia. Anyway, all the world teams showed up in Perth, Canada. The Perth Shootout, they call it. And United States and then Canada had a team. but they wanted to play the North Americans, the all native team. So in Canada back then, you remember? I think you remember the ABC Wild World of Sports.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, every Saturday came on, right? Well, they had the same thing over in Canada, so they televised our games to play against the Canadian national team that team was going to go to the Goodwill games. We were the only team in that weekend to beat that. We didn't beat them, but we took them 7 innings. Otherwise, they beat everybody by the run rule within 4 to 5 innings. But we played against another First Nation native player there. He was from Garden River, Ontario. His name was Darren Zach. Darren Zach has won more ISC world tournaments than almost any other pitcher. And he's a native from Garden River.
Did you light him up?
I broke up his no-hitter. I didn't light him up. My God, I broke up his no-hitter that day. And if I had a memory.
Sorry, Darren. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, if I had a memory that day, a fast pitch, that would be my memory. And I remember Darren, he threw that ball 100 miles an hour, 35 feet away from me. And so the ball hit my bat.
So
I'll say, no, you couldn't blink. So we played that day when I got a hit off him. And he bear down.
Walk back in again.
I go back up to bat. He threw 3 pitches, and I almost fell down on all 3 of them. He threw a changeup that was probably 80 miles an hour, but to me it looked like it was coming 100 and some. But he struck me out as I was picking up my bat to go back down. He said, he gave me that nod, respect, took his cap, and he checked out. He wanted to come back to make sure that he struck me out because I broke up the no-hitter on national TV that day. So that was one of my most, for me, that was a personal, because I was afraid. Because when I first took the first game I ever played in that league, I thought I didn't belong there. But to play at that level against the best, I would say, in men's fast pitch.
So you think you would have kind of took a different mentality going back if you had that, just that little bit of confidence? Because we come from not a lot, you know what I mean? So to have that kind of that confidence going over there, it's confidence, yes, but when you're there, it's just a different kind of competition. It's a different kind of you have to mentally lock in for it,
There's something that comes, all of us that played the game of sports, there's something that comes within us that, man, where did I get that from? How did I throw that ball, and a laser from center field, or shot that 3-pointer? How did I took that jump shot? Well, not too many guys take jump shots anymore, or hook shots, but how did I do that? Or how did I run that race that fast? That builds up something. Something comes out of us. That competitive brings you that, and I think that goes back to life. If we don't challenge ourselves, if we don't balance ourselves, if we don't challenge ourselves, it's going to end up that, hey, maybe I won't get everything all of life that could have been given to me, but it's up to my choice to make it better. And I think that those things like that, when you asked me that question, I don't think if I didn't have that chance to face those individuals, that confidence, then after that it was like, hey, who else gonna? All
right. Who else is gonna take?
I'm going to any field. I'm ready. And not that I was arrogant or
I think you have to be a little bit.
A little bit.
You definitely have to be if you want to be a competitor.
Yeah, and that's just kind of not the rules of the game, but that's the spirit. And that's the competitiveness. That's if you don't. It's like then it's just. Why did I do that? I
tell my daughter all the time. She's playing basketball, and she's been 3 years now, right? So when she first got it, they call it jump ball basketball 3rd grade because girls dribble and they hold the ball and then everybody goes after it and then they jump off.
Yeah.
So she would sit there and she would just wait, not touch. So I just told her, just go and grab the ball. Well, I don't want to hurt her. I want to get, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just you're not when you're being competitive, it's okay to want to beat the other team. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not okay to sit back and not it's almost wasting your talent. And I tell her all the time, I say, just go after the ball, go down and score it and give it back to her. I don't care. Yeah. It's one of those things. So she had to get it through her mind to where now it's she just be aggressive. well, I don't want to fall out. And I'm just like, I've never seen a kid fall out in 5th grade, 6th grade basketball.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Yeah.
But so my next question is this for you, is they didn't give you a lot of time for your Hall of Fame speech, I wouldn't say. You know, I mean, they give you,
50,
I'm sorry. They give you like 5 minutes to talk
Yeah.
about 40 years of your life of
Yeah.
playing one sport, you know, anything that you love. So if you could, and I thought about this too, because when I did mine, I was just like, there's so much things you leave out, you know what I mean? So is there anything that you left out that you would like everybody to know, like just small things where it's like, you know, maybe giving a shout out to more people, or like maybe a different memory, you know what I mean? Something to where it's always that when you get done, it's like, God, I could have said this. I should have meant, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because yes, there was. There's so much more that I would like to share, and maybe we don't have the time. As we were making conversation for this interview today, we could tell stories for hours or all day long, and we could probably if we, you know. But we know we have things that we needed to do. But when I went to that event that evening, I went there a little bit concerned. But I went there I was going there kind of with a boastful way. I went there with a bold way, and the bold way was that I wore my headdress that was given to my wife by my home club brother for representing Sister Lofton at the NCI Whoopie he had. He honored myself and Ernie Stevens Jr. He's from Oneida. He's head of gaming. He honored Texal honored us with a headdress.
That's cool.
And I never wore it. Never, because I didn't think I earned it. I didn't think it was right for me to wear it. But when I got inducted in I guess it was my second time. My first time was I wore it when I got inducted out to when TJ inducted me
American World Series?
Yeah. So I wore it during that time, and I was a little bit concerned about that. If I was violating some traditions or something, but I thought I was representing who I was, who I am. Somebody honored me with something, and I wore it just for that occasion. So I went to the Hall of Fame for the South Dakota Hall of Fame this past fall. I wore it because I was wearing it for our family. If my children could see this 20, 30 years from now, they can see Grandpa wearing or Dad wearing that, because I am a Native American, and I'm proud of it. But I also was representing our people, who we were. Now, I couldn't say everything I wanted to, because no one probably would have understood it. And the reason being, I have more experience on all the softball fields in Indian country on the reservations, right? Some are good and some are so-so, right?
Yeah.
But those were challenging. Those were my real memories. Going to Sioux Falls, going to Rapid, going to Aberdeen, going to Watertown, all the tournaments we go to, the non-native tournaments. Yeah, they're nice, but it's not the same, right?
Yeah.
It was the same. I mean, I felt at home here. So I didn't get to say everything I wanted to, and I wanted to share today was that it doesn't matter where we come from. It's the matter where we're going to. And again, it goes back to our inner turn of self. Where do we want to be at in life? Where do we want to take this to? Now, I was starting to say that I'm very selfish when it came to softball. I was one of the most. I would save all my money all weekend so I can get to a tournament. But we would penny pinch and wash diapers. I had to kill the kids' diapers so that we can save money to go to the tournament. You know, that's all. You know, okay. But we all went as a family. But the thing about that is that I still believe that those things to make that happen, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for a job. In this building that we're interviewing in the front was our finance office. I worked there for 15 years in central finance. I didn't have an education. I didn't go to college. I had a heart attack 2 weeks after my graduation in May of 1978. Couldn't get my scholarships. Couldn't go on to the big dreams. I just couldn't. They wouldn't take me in the military. So all I ended up to be in that fall, that July actually, was a box boy at Sioux Village Food, our first grocery store, where the C-stores at.
Oh, really? Sioux Village Food, huh?
Yeah, Sioux Village Food, making 85 cents an hour. And I thought I was making money. But it was something that I was doing, but it kept me going.
That was your first job?
That was my first job.
Well, it goes back. My first job was squeaky door in Little Brew. I was same thing, grocery store.
But these things build character. Because once you have a plan, once you have design, so my kids, my grandkids, and great grandkids now and yet that are here and yet to come, they need to understand that they need to take that path where they feel in their heart. Don't live a life for another group or for something else. You live that life what's in here, because at the end of the day, when this is all over with, we answer to one person. And they're not going to ask about your cousin. They're not going to ask about your gang friend or your, whatever, trying to peer pressure you into something. They're not going. You're going to be judged by that, but you're going to be only you standing there. And so in life, we have to take that same path. When I grew up over here in Crawford's Coulee, we would go out in the woods and have to do things. And we would always have to, in a dark time, to go find a cow or find a calf or find, Misty, whatever. We would go out.
A stray?
Stray. And that blind dog that we had to go look for. I won't say what uncle that was. But we had to go, but we had to find our way. But if you ever walked in the true darkness, by physical dark, that we can touch and see and hear, we walk in that. Your senses are so keen. You can smell, hear, you can almost see what's ahead of you. When you're walking, you can almost sense that dip or that pit, thing. Something comes to us. And I think that's what we have to remember, that those senses are in our life. That they're alive in us. We just have to let it come.
We just don't use them enough, huh?
We don't use them enough. We don't trust in it enough.
Right.
We don't trust in it. And real strength comes from that trust.
So those moments you talk about, just those small moments like that, like you having a heart attack after graduation, right, where, you had plans before that, you know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those things, and I always talk to people and they tell me about these moments that they go through, and it's like, sometimes it's like the bad thing, you know what I mean? But it's like, wow, if that didn't happen, I probably would have did this, you know what I mean? But I meant, that happened for a reason though. Something in the path, along your path, changed the trajectory, and it was like, well, maybe you weren't supposed to do that, because maybe if you didn't work at a grocery store and then work your way up to being chairman type of thing, it's like, well, then what would we have? Things would be different. Yeah. So I always look at that and be like, well, those were those victories. You know what I mean? It might not seem like it, but like if I was to go to heaven and see Creator or see God or I'd be like, you know what, man, did I get it right? Did I get it right? Or I seen your little throwing me off movements, but did I make the right choice though?
Yeah. So and back to that simple word, those are life lessons, and then we have to accept. To be maybe I'll expand on what if scenario. I had a full ride for football to South Dakota State University to play football. I had a free ride to Jamestown College for basketball. I had both a scholarship for cross country and track at NDSU, and I had a football ride at North Dakota State School of Science. And I had our football coach, his brother was coaching, was the athletics director for the Morris, University of Morris. He said, I just want you here. You can do whatever you want. You get in. and so being that multiple athletes that we grew up to be, because not specializing, we got to experience that, but not doing that. At one point I thought about it, what if I would have went to college, could I have been playing on one of these tournaments or teams or whatever. But then when I look about it later on, I always remember this, he was from Jeb Burns. He was from Webster, South Dakota. Great athlete. Big guy, big boy. He went to some bigger northern and other colleges he went off to. And after it was all said and done, we come back to play amateur-based basketball or softball. See him, man, he said, how come you didn't come to college, man, we could have used you. And then but we were competitive with them, and amateur stuff. But, no, I had this heart attack. It didn't happen. The one that really hurted me the most was the year that the Huron, Terry Dupree, went to the Nationals. I would have been a freshman that year. That they went. That I would have been I think I maybe would have made the team, to be honest.
Well, so Terry ended up making an NBA, almost going to NBA.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
coming from here on?
Yeah.
I mean, holy.
That King, I can't remember his first name, but he was a King. And there were some really good ball players came out through that time. And a lot of those same guys played in here.
Old
The
youth center gym?
Yep, they played in
Swords,
here.
Boys and Girls
We
Club,
had-
plenty of names for a while now.
One of my good friends, when Ronnie Renville had passed away, for 10 years, I hosted the annual Ronnie Renville Memorial Tournament. And we had at one time, we had the major amateur teams, both white and Indians, all sitting here in this gym playing each other. And I always remember Terry Dupree was saying that. He said, man, these teams, these are the team of the teams in this area. And so Tex Hall and well, guys from Butch Kirky and them, and we had Bill Eaglestaff, and we had I-29, Dunlap, and those guys. They're all sitting in this gym. They were playing, and I-29 didn't even place that tournament. But we had Hank Taken alive. We had Woody Larson. He wasn't a tribal guy, but these major guys were sitting right here playing in the same gym all that one year. And we had Tom Wilson too that one year.
Tom said he didn't even have a three-point line, huh? He didn't even need none.
He didn't need a three-point line.
He came 5 feet in, gave me the ball, huh?
But
Pictures were black and white.
yeah.
Pictures were black.
But those, yeah, I mean, those are some stories I wish I could have shared more with. I mean, somebody got on the internet the other day on YouTube and started naming tournaments they would have. Yeah, I remember those guys. I remember assisted in middle school. The Renville, Robin and Grady, Renville and them had I think it was during Christmas time, they had a break, they had a tournament there. Assisted in an independent, all-Indian tournament there. And I remember Freddie Knife coming from Eagle Butte playing. And I remember Freddie Knife, that was my, I mean, I seen a lot of good ball players, and there's a lot of good ball players, right? But I seen Freddie Knife get a rebound. And granted, the middle school gym is not the longest.
Oh, yeah.
But he took that ball from the key and dribbled backward, running backwards with the rest of the fast break going backwards. Stops and spins in midair and lays it in front of the group. I was like, can you do that? But that's what Indian ball, and that's what, when I say, so I missed out in some of the college things that I maybe could have went to.
Yeah.
But I've not seen the native talent that we have that's out there. That's sometimes unreached or unseen. It's out there, but we just didn't. I'm so lucky that I had that opportunity and to be play with some of those individuals to say, I don't know if my softball career is over yet. I always say one more year.
Yeah.
And my basketball might be, but I would say I've been around it. And it's something for every youth, male, boy or girl, should experience. It bears character, and it'll build you a balance that makes life. For me, I wanted to go play, so I better get a job so I can get the gas money to get there, right? And that was my push to make it happen.
So you started at the first job was at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And then moved up after that. Just like slowly just got the education, got the experience and all the rest of the stuff. So back then, like seeing what the tribe was and seeing like there was more to offer, you know what I mean? Like brighter ideas, like something new. I mean, if I look at it now, I always thought like agencies should be the hub of the Northeast here, you know what I mean? Just because we got a lot of people that work, we got like a lot of work, we get the workforce, I mean, we have the ideas, it's just, there's nothing really stopping us, but sometimes ourselves.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. So those kind of ideas I wanted to bring to life and say, hey, like from one grocery store to now everything building up. And you just mentioned a story earlier about this building itself, and then somebody coming out of the bathroom and shaking a trash bag, and then all of a sudden the idea pops up to where it's like, all right, we're gonna sell trash bags, we're gonna make trash bags.
Yeah, and those are some of the things, and I think just that incident, but you can clone that. There's so many more of those incidents out here in our community. Back in the late '70s and in the '80s, we don't have what we have today in 2025. We
No.
didn't have that. When we looked at our tribal budget, it wasn't even close to what it is today. I mean, we're spending more money today, 3 times, maybe more, than we ever earned
Oh.
in the 80s. But that's just how life grows, and it goes to it, right? So we had the chance, or I had the chance to look at what I always said. I'm not the smartest guy in the world by no means, but I'm an opportunist. I had a knack to see if something was broken, or if something was broken, somehow, some way, I had an opportunity to try to fix it.
Right.
But we didn't fix it for JC. We fixed it for my family. We fixed it for the tribe,
Right.
because it was needed to be fixed. And it wasn't, and then thinking about it, well, when I came up here to finance, well, when I made $5 an hour, holy man, I bought a new van, I bought new tires.
Powerwall
shit,
van?
man, yeah.
Softball van.
I was living it, you know?
So I always thought there was a difference sometimes when, we talk about being like super competitive when it comes to sports and stuff,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And you have to have that drive, that small arrogance thing. And I know it's not a big thing for us as Native people to be arrogant, you know what I mean? But the arrogant, I always thought, relies on the confidence that you have in your abilities, you know what I mean? Because people might see you arguing with somebody or in a basketball game or a softball game, whatever the case. But I mean, that's where it ends though, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like in sports, once the games are done, we know that's the end of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even in life, I think that was always tough for us. Like for me growing up, or for, being here, working here for a long time now, where it's the support for each other sometimes just isn't there, and well, that idea is good, but I mean, you can't be arrogant about it. And it's just like, I'm not trying to be arrogant. It's like, I'm just really want something different,
Yeah.
And I think enough people that see it that way, where it's like, you're not trying to be biased in any kind of sense. You just want change,
Mhm.
I always thought like an opportunist, if 2 people, either they're arguing if the glass is half full or half empty,
Mhm.
I mean, well, shit, you're just going to drink and you're done.
Yeah.
End of story, right?
Yep.
Then we'll look for the next opportunity. So I think, after, all your accomplishments and all the rest of the stuff, is that something like you kind of look forward to nowadays? Like you look forward to kind of what opportunities you can bring to the tribe that, really, really help us? Because I know you have your own business,
Yeah.
And I know you're very effective. So, and it's one of those things to where it's like, more people in a sense thought outside the box, where, I don't know how you would say it, like, everybody just needs to just show that support to everybody,
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's hard. I just think it's, like I said, it's one of those things where maybe if we have more of these conversations,
Yeah.
it'll start to come out to be like, yeah, well, I didn't know that, because I would have never known you went through a lot of the struggles that you did, or you were presented with a lot of opportunities that you had the options, and then something that derailed you was, a heart attack, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh, shoot, like being young and going through something like that, some people don't recover from that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it stops them from wanting to grow, because it's like, well, because we think that way sometimes, where it's like, well, all good things are happening for me, so something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well, no, not really. Like something bad happens when, like, it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
It's just weird, because it's not like
Yeah.
you're being bad. It's just things happen.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to get through them.
And those, my aunt, Iva, she was the oldest of the girls, and just as you're relating to what you're saying, when you said that, I can remember the talk we had in Minneapolis in her apartment, and she said, "JC, you have to have those as reminders, and you're going to have a flat tire every now and then. That's important that you get out and you change it and you continue on. And however you adjust to that, however you make that correction or adjustment, is going to stay. You might be a little bit off balance at first, but then eventually that, one of my old coaches would say, muscle memory. Right?
Oh yeah, repetitive.
Repetitive. So once you get into that mode of, what's good for us, for ourselves, when we're balanced, then the routine journey comes back into play again.
Right.
So we can look back and say, oh shoot, yeah, I went out and had a night fun, and man, I was hungover or whatever, something happened, or I had a bad relationship or something, but it didn't define me. It only gave me that life lessons to be powerful, to move on, to be stronger. And I think that's where, it's either win or lose to sometimes, too. Life is not a win and loss activity. It's a lifelong activity.
I always thought it was about like taking chances, right?
Taking chances.
You have to.
Yes.
And it's one of those things to where it's like, I remember when I was younger, you used to jump off the roof of the house, I don't know how it was so like small to climb up the metal pipes on the side, the gutters.
Yeah.
Like somehow put your leg up and then get up on top, right? Well, we used to like just jump and try to. We grew up loving wrestling, WWE kind of stuff. So we used to jump off the house on the, big old piles of leaves, And I had the smart idea one time to, I did it twice and I thought I was real cool about it, you know what I mean? And then kind of stopped and didn't think about it at once. The last time I went off, I was trying to just be a cool guy in some sense. And, I ended up hitting and sprained my left arm. But, didn't want to tell my mom. But it was one of those things where it was like, I was more dominant with my left hand at that time than I was with my right hand. So I had to try to, like, try not to show her my arm was hurting in a sense. So I just started practicing with my right hand more and then became more right hand dominant, which was weird because it was like, I always wanted to be a lefty. But it wasn't in the books for me kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think those are some of the things that, that I experienced in itself. And I have to relate that to my challenges of addiction, we all, I think we all in our lives have some way we encounter that area of addiction, but we can't let that define us. It could define us if we let it become weak to it, but if we find out that that's not it, that'll only make us stronger in our walk the other way. So there's always a give and take, and you take the best what you can and learn from it and move on. That was my aunt Bernita's, one of her famous words was, but move on. You're better than this. And so those little things, as my uncles become fathers, but my aunts were just as strong because I was kind of a spoiled brat when I was knee high. Oh. Well, I couldn't never walk. I couldn't be very far from my grandfather. Him and I, for the first 9 years of my life, we were untouchable.
What kind of guy was he? Like,
He was older. He was a carpenter in life. He was a ruling elder at a church, and he had two families. His first family that he had all passed away for the fever, and then he met my grandmother, and then he started another family, and you think about those challenges, and we say, well, geez, that's two families. Well, one was tragically ended, but it didn't define him. He met someone else and moved on and had another relationship and had all of us, the Crawfords. But he had other daughters. I think there was 4 or 5 of them, but they all had died through the fever at the time. So then when he moved into Flange, he met my grandmother, and that's where my dad was, and that started from there. So it was a chance, but it didn't define him. He made his faith stronger, and he was blessed with more children and more grandchildren and more great-grandchildren. That 7 generation for him grew too.
So you got like any kind of memories you have of him when he's like maybe like the smell or like something like wood crackling or like certain things in the season like just that you still smell or you still like feel today, like you still go through those?
Yes, and then one of the things, I don't smoke very much, right? But I have a pipe, and every time we got done cleaning some fish, or he made windows. Back in the old original old pine windows.
Well, he was a carpenter, right?
He was a carpenter, so he was custom that. And so when he got done with something, he would always light his pipe. And so when I smell a certain pipe, that smell aroma, it reminds me of him, and I have to go to see mine too. Now.
So was it like a chanupa, or was it like like a Popeye pipe, kind of like?
Yeah, kind of a little Popeye.
Tobacco type thing.
Yeah, and so he had that was his way of smoking, but he would do it of accomplishment.
Oh, I see.
And maybe in his own way, from his dad and grandpa, because they were both. Achiba was he had a, he was a headsman, so maybe that was his way of giving his blessing, of thankfulness of what he accomplished or whatever. But that was one, and every spring, I would almost see him walking when I could hear the creek running and breaking up from the ice, and you hear that first, what it called, there's a certain sound in the spring when they were running the creeks. And then whenever I go up in the hills or around, we go spearing or whatever, that I get that sense, and I remind, because it's like a whole new season, a whole new beginning. We made it through the winter, and now we're going to grow in the garden. We're gonna watch out for new chickens and ducks and raise them for the for the harvest for the fall.
Well, those are like the healthy traditions. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of good stuff that, like, to carry on to your grandkids, and you still cut wood, and you still hunt and do a lot of that kind of stuff. And nowadays, like, it seems like, with the digital world, everything changes. You know what I mean? But to get back to it, it's like, I don't know. It's there. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so close for us, even as tribal members, that we see, like, a lot of the stuff our grandparents used to do. And it's like, I still have, like, a potato salad like my mom used to make. You know what I mean? And my auntie used to make. It's like one of those things. As I get older, I'm just going to try to teach my kids as much as I can about it is, like, how their grandparents were, because I recently just did, like, a family tree, right? And I was just going back, and I don't know how I dove into it, but it was surprising because it was like, holy crap, I mean, you could go back to 1700s, and it's weird because it's like how powerful a lot of the people were, I mean, one of the ancestors I had, they were one of the ones that had one of the first washing machine in a sense, and people used to come around and barter, and then she used to help wash their clothes, and it's a community thing, and it's like you look back on stories like that, and it's just like so helpful to people,
those things when it comes to barter was one of the other things that were very common. For whatever reason, there was two Knutsons down here, their family. For some reason, they swore that our cow, our milk cow, made the best cream. so grandma would make the cream, cow's cream, and it's okay, you guys take it down there, and then they would give us trade. Well, what does your mom need? My mom needs some yeast, maybe some salt and pepper, spices or whatever, and that's what they would trade. And I wanted to share something when we were back further that came to my mind when we were talking. Today our world is different, and it's going to be different. I want to have a piece of the pie. We all love pie. I mean, there's not too many people don't like a good apple pie.
Apple Dutch.
Apple Dutch pie. Everybody likes it. And that's what we need as a community. We all got to believe that Sister Wapton Oyate is that apple pie. And we all need a piece of that pie to survive. But in that same token, that pie in general circle is a circle pie. So it doesn't matter which, there's no corner, there's no distance. Everybody shares in the same pie. And it should be large enough for each of us to share that same pie. May it be in friendship, may it be in cutting wood for someone, may it be cutting that needy boy that needs a haircut or new shoes or something. You see someone that needs, back then if we seen, somebody needed something, hey, where did those boots go? I thought I was going to get those boots next, but they gave it to someone else that needed it more. So that they had, and you go to church, hey, he has my boots on. But he needed it more than I did, I guess. But that's what we're forgetting, and we got to do it not just for the title or just for the ranking.
Yeah,
it's because it's life, and that's how we're going to survive.
I think most people have that in them. I mean,
it's in us.
They got it, and you do it, and then it's just different. Like I said, from the digital age now, it just seems. It seems harder because most of the time, like, I don't know, we just go against our own feelings.
Yeah.
We just go against how we truly feel about it. And what we truly feel about it is you'd rather give somebody, the shirt off your back.
Yeah.
and not expect nothing. And you got to understand though, like nowadays, it's like if you give a shirt off your back, you don't have a shirt, so go find a new one.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you
Yeah.
just don't sit and wait for someone to bring you a shirt.
Yeah.
Go find one.
Go find it, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the thing that when in the mid '80s and '90s when we had our concerns and issues as a tribe, I was appreciative that I was part of this one, that I knew that we had nothing. The only thing that our tribe had was our land. So when we lost our 8A's accounting certification, so that we can charge into our costs from the grants that came in, so that we can do the things right, created jobs, right?
Yeah.
Well, we lost that certification. So it became a crisis. And it wasn't that, well, you did that, you should have did that, that was you that did that. No. What do we do to fix it? Because as soon as I came into finance in 1981, I thought, okay, I'll be doing good. I'm gonna be up to $1.10, you know. Finance, they were making good pay, and I thought I was in the right spot. Dude, they laid me off. You gotta work, but we can't pay you for 30 days. Huh? I should have stayed at the store. At least I was getting paid, you know. But learning that lesson, what happened, that it took ourselves to be mindful that what we did as a tribe, from whatever department or position was, it all was part of the pie. It affected us one way or the other.
Yeah.
You either made the pie sweeter or it got sour. But you needed to experience the both at times, so we can appreciate it when it's tasting good. And that's where I think today our resources are plentiful, and to some degree, but we're not structured to have security. Because in the blink of an eye, this could go away.
Right.
Then what do we do?
Sustainability is tough.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's tough in the financial world when it comes to, you know, wanting to keep making profits, rent, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But culturally, like I always thought it would be, it's just weird to think about it, because like anytime you're out in the open or you're by yourself, or, you know, you tend to think about like, God, what our ancestors used to do. You know, like I think about it all the time. I'm just like, man, it's, you know, helping one another or doing something because it needs to be done, in the sense that it's always going to go unnoticed no matter what. And that's how it should be, though.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be there for, it's just like you do the most, you help the most, none of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I always think it's powerful. Even when we see kids, so at the youth center we see kids all the time helping each other. You know what I love about it the most is this. I love it that we get two kids that are arguing, right?
Yeah.
And they'll just come up to you randomly and be like, oh, hey, they're arguing, they're saying this to me, yeah. Well, we sit them down and talk, and then they'll tell their story, and then once they get done, we'll be like, all right, guys, now you guys settled it. Like, that's how it's got to be.
Yeah.
And then, you know, what's crazy is they're just so quick to forgive each other.
Yeah.
And they're so quick to just be friends again.
Yeah.
And it's just one small dispute doesn't change anything about them. It just changes, all right, should we go play basketball now? You know?
Yeah.
Like, they get over it. And that's what I love about it, because that's still there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That hasn't
Yeah.
changed.
And that's a good point, because when we were growing up even with our own internal family, you know, big family, you know, we had brothers had disputes,
Oh.
sisters had disputes. Well, to settle them, sometimes, you know, well, okay, we're going to, mom, well, she was my grandma, but I call her mom. Our mom would, all right then, I'm taking the glove away. No, no, can't keep the glove. That means we can't play ball this afternoon after our chores are done. And, well, I'm taking the bat now. Well, but then our disputes came to end pretty fast, because we wanted to go play ball. And so then that went away, and then it just went by. Is that easy? Yeah, it's easy. Today, is it harder? Yeah, it's harder, because it's happening now.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that, you know, that process. I'll be the first to too. It's hard for me to forgive in certain incidents and certain things. But my life is not I would say my life didn't get any better because I didn't forgive. But I can see when the times that I did forgive, my life got better.
So that goes into, you know, a couple of my final questions I got for you. So one of them is that aspect of it. So, you know, you said, like, you know, you hold on to things certain times, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so for your great-great-grandkids or your grandkids or even your kids, you know, is it one of those things that, you know, it could be a change in the generation that they do, you know? Maybe for them to not have something like that. You know what I mean? Because I always thought we take something from our parents all the time,
Mhm.
and take something from our grandparents.
Mhm.
You know, my grandpa maybe wasn't the best at talking,
Mhm.
but then it led to my mom being very vocal with me.
Mhm.
Then it led to me, you know what I mean, changing that for my kids. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, and I'd be willing to be the one that, you know, changing generational stuff that happens that sometimes ain't good things.
Mhm.
But I'd be open, or I'd be the one to say, all right, I'm gonna take all this so my kids don't have to do it no more.
Yeah.
So you think that's like very important, you know, something as you get older, you know, like you think, all right, like grandpa's like this, but you don't need to be like this.
Yeah.
You can change that part of it to where it's like, you know, maybe less stressful for them or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
does it make sense?
it is, and then, you know, growing up with our family, you know, and one of our challenges, I guess, you know, unfortunately, you know, we had addiction to some degree, and it hit some of our family members harder than the other, but at the end of the day, we fall and asked, you know, for that repentant, and we moved on, because when you ask for your repentant, you're starting anew. So my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, for you to remember that repentant is an important part of your life. There's part of this life that we have to be accountable for. So if I struck you, someone, well, yeah, I did. No, I didn't do it. No, live up to what your accountability of your actions. But then ask for repentance, not only to the person or the processes you have. You ask for that forgiveness, and I'm going to change my way. I won't do that no more. And we learned up real fast. I think some of us grew up with horses. If you treated a horse bad, boy, or a dog, guess what? That dog's gonna bite you back, right? He's not gonna be, oh, come on, and he's gonna be scared of you. So we have to learn some of those hard things, but our children need to know that it wasn't all easy for me, or wasn't all easy for us in life. And those things that we done may be preventable in a certain way, but the action might be in a different form. But it's just the pathway of life.
Yeah.
You're always going to encounter something. So that the generations to come, and for us to continue to get stronger, and for those that listen to our stories and to listen to our advice, or listen to our experiences, I didn't learn this from I'll be the first to say, I didn't learn it from a textbook.
No.
What I'm telling you and what I've learned and what I've done was because of a crisis, but it was also because someone loved me.
All the great experiences.
All
right?
those great experiences, man. It wasn't for the love of my family and for those that cared about me and showed it to me. That really was the balancing of life, that someone cared for me. And if it's a friend, if it's a stranger, like you said, the children you work with on a daily basis, you show them that love. They're going to come back because they know that there's love there.
See, for everything that you've been through, man, everything that you said to us today, all the stories and all the rest of the stuff, like, I really give you your flowers, you know, like, and it's hard. It's hard to be vulnerable when you're talking and you're saying stuff, because that's like the most impactful stuff. So people are gonna watch it. People are gonna be like, you know what, like, God, I didn't know that about JC, or you know, I didn't understand that at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And even when people go through struggles, we tend to hang on to those struggles, but the more you're like I said, as you get older, it's almost like that happened, yeah, that happened, yep, that happened, yeah, that happened, but that doesn't happen anymore. Like it happened at that time, and then it's done.
Yeah.
So now it's like, you know what, like, to try to correct which we think is the wrongs of the past, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, one of those stories that we're told over the years in our family, and I'll share it, and maybe my family after me will hear this. And the story was of my grandfather, and he had cattle, but some individuals had a dispute with him, or got a dispute, so they poisoned all his cows, and so he had to bury his cows and all that stuff. But he came, and my dad and my older uncles and aunts would say, they would shake their head. He knew who they were, but he went up and forgave them. And at the dying day of their deathbed, those individuals called for him to come pray for them and say, Ed, can you forgive me? What is there to forgive? I really did. So these are things that we learn from them. That's one story I hold for my grandfather. Now, have I done that really, passionately too? No, I've done some things too in my life that playing the game or trying to get the edge or whatever you want to say. Do I feel good about it? I probably feel that's probably my lowest time in life. But I've asked myself to ask for forgiveness for that, and we need to share that more. I mean, we're not all right, and it was never all wrong either.
Right.
Yeah,
It's always two sides of the story, right?
Oh yeah,
always.
Always two sides of the story.
So, almost my last question, I would think, but like, is there anything that you would want to say to your family if they're watching?
Yeah.
Like, let's say 20 years down the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, the world has changed or whatever, and if they found this, or if they were going to look back, if your great granddaughter was going to come up and say, "Hey, I want to watch, I want to watch that video, Papa," you know what I mean, or something. Is there something that you want to say to them? Is there anything that you'd be like, you know what, like this is what it is, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Derek, because there's something in my life that at this time I'm 65 years old. I always thought that life wasn't. It was in the 20. We grew into 20s. My first 20 years, I was young and foolish and crazy, and right.
Yeah.
Your middle 20s, you kind of had a balance and all. Then you had that. Well, I'm in my last part of my 20s, so if the Bible says, God says that if a man is whether he can do 60 plus 10 years to be 70 years of age. I'm 65. I can ride a bike yet. Not as far as I used to, but if I look back to my dad and to my uncles, they couldn't ride a bike at 65. So I'm going to tell my children to stay active. Keep your legs strong, keep your mind more strongful in heart, and keep your heart and believe in in spirituality. Because if you have a good, solid foundation, and if you're balanced, God will give you more blessings than you will ever have. I've learned things more at my latter part of my 20s years life than I did ever when I was in my beginning of my year. So even if you're young, things are happening, don't leave that to be your life, because you got a whole half a life ahead of you. And if it's 20, 40, 60, 80, well then that's what it is. Now Jackie told us that her and I are going to live to be 100. So geez, I got a long ways to go and maybe some more games. But my children, you have to set a plan. My kids, you have to set a plan for yourself. And sometimes that imagination is stronger than will. If you can imagine that I'm going to be 80 years old playing softball, maybe it is. Maybe it's possible. Somebody's out there playing yet at 80 years old, I bet, somewhere. But if I'm doing that, I'm doing it because I love the game and God had given me the blessings. But there's one thing that's important to all of this. Like you said, we have it, but we have to keep our vibes receptible. We have to be receptive of it. We have to be appreciative of it. God will give us blessings and He'll answer our prayers every day. But you have to live a life where He can come to you. We can't be in a stage where they won't come. You have to be at a stage where you're willing to be acceptable to that. And I think that's what things we have to say, and that's how you're going to go. If you're 20 years old watching this, or if you're 30 or 40, you got a whole life ahead of you yet. Just 4 small words, life. But that's everlasting too.
So you started with life. You started with that, and then now you're ending with this. So that's powerful. It's really powerful, man. Because I'm gonna be 40. That's his second 20s. I didn't figure it out yet, but it's one of those things to where I take on like everything that I always thought every single person has something in them regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my son this all the time, and you got a thumbprint for a reason. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it unlocks. I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
I said, but if you have a different thumbprint from me and I have a different thumbprint from everybody else, I said, there's got to be a reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, now you got to figure out what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to not sit there and study it, but you got to figure out if there's something in you that's different.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be I say it can never be in a bad way. It's always got to be in a good way because it's different, you know? Like we all go to one place. I always tell my kids this all the time. Like you figure out what you like to do and what you really, really love. And I said, you'll be happy no matter what.
Yeah.
And I said, you could be a guy that just does, you can be grocery. You can start out making, how much were you making?
85 cents an
85
hour.
cents. And then bumped up $1 and got laid off. I mean, just imagine.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, you found your superpower. I mean, you played, I'm not going to play that long. I'm not at all. I'm almost done right now. But it's one of those things to where, like, watching you play or watching you committed to that, like, it's just, that's your strength. You know what I mean? And you know it. I mean, I think a couple years back, you hurt your knee or your ankle, and you didn't think you were going to be out. I mean, shoot, I think after you had surgery, you were out there like 2-3 months later. You weren't even supposed to be.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was what drove you. It's one of those things that I always thought you're going to do it until, you can't do it no more. So, I mean, that in itself is very powerful. So I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing all the stories with us, man, because I'm going to tell you what, like, people just need to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So if you see JC and you see him at the Connection eating, or you see him at the C-store putting in gas, or do you see him at the Tribe on one of the hallways, whatever, just talk to him, ask him questions, because it could be sharing stories with you about, oh, I remember when you played, or I remember when you hit this ball so far, or I remember when that happened, you know what I mean? I mean, have those stories with each other, because that's what this is about. This whole lessons is supposed to be about us talking to each other in a way that helps us celebrate each other, in the best of way, because, I mean, like I said, it's tough forgiving people, it's tough moving on and doing that stuff, but it's a necessary part of life.
Yeah.
And we got to understand that.
Just us in our conversations and the two other ones here, the four of us, it's only a small number to the 15 plus, almost 15,000 tribal members.
Yeah.
On or off the reservation, wherever Assistant Wapton member is, we're just a small number. But remember the things that we were told. You plant some mustard seed, as small as it is. You just plant just a little bit of it and let it grow. It'll show us where we need to be.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. But yeah, I want to thank you, JC, for coming on the show.
Yep, you're welcome.
Hopefully this guys can run it back and do it again here.
Yeah.
Not too long. But for everybody that's listening, thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes.
If you want to be on the show, just let us know. You can reach out to Rachel, Tom, or myself, and like I said, if you see JC, congratulate him, because, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think they should have did it a long time ago in my book. But if you see him, congratulate him, it's just the same thing as, people, having babies or getting married, or then we need to celebrate those kind of things. So please, when you do see him, just congratulate him, man. because that's a big, big honor, and we need that. Not a lot of people. I think you're the only Assistant Wapton tribal member that got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't know how many people before you that were native, but for us to have just that degree of it, I just think it's awesome. I really do, man. Like I said, I want to thank you again, and then, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and hope to see you guys soon. Hi, I'm Derek McCulley. I'm your host for Lessons. If you know anybody that would like to get on the show, just contact the SW Youth Department or the multimedia group here at the IT facility, and hope to hear from you.